What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where I, Treavor Bettis, talk to interesting people each week about idle champions and Dungeons & Dragons, and with me this week is the incredible Lauren Urban!
Thank you. I like being called incredible. I'm with the incredible Treavor Bettis, and we are both incredible together.
Heck yeah. And yeah, we're gonna have some fun this week, chatting about stuff that Lauren does, and then playing a game that Lauren has devised and was telling me about before we started the show, and I cannot wait to see some answers in chat about this. Oh, it's gonna be a good one.
I've been threatening to do this for quite a while. It's a game in quotation marks. It's more of an extended, ridiculous conversation, which is kind of what D&D is. So I'm okay with saying that.
It's fair. It's fair. I'm gonna kick things off like I do when I have a new person on here, which, you know, for the time being is everyone, because I'm still new at hosting the show. Lauren, how did you get into D&D?
Oh, geez. Okay. So there's the technically real answer, and then there's the real answer. So the technically real answer is way back in first edition when I was super young, because I grew up in the 80s during the Satanic Panic. I am an indoor child, and my parents are geeks, and between me being an indoor child and being geeky, my parents thought that, oh, we'll get them this D&D thing, and they'll, you know, have a game to play with friends, you know, and get out of the house and make friends and stuff, because it took me a while to learn how to be social. And then, so I got this game, and I got what was at the time, not the original Redbox, but like I think it was the first edition. It might have been AD&D. I'm not sure. Okay. But it came with basically a training manual for the DM of like, it was a choose your own adventure style.
Yes.
Where basically you played a character, and then the choose your own adventure would be like, all right, you've encountered a goblin. Go ahead and roll your D20 and add this and see what happens. And, you know, it was basic mechanics. Mm-hmm. So they gave me this thing, and I loved playing through it on my own, which was good because I could not find anybody to play with, because everybody that was interested in playing with me had a parent who said no, and everybody who probably could have played with me were not interested in playing with me. So that's like, okay, technically that's where I started playing D&D. And then I played a lot of TTRPGs, other things, and I played a lot of video games, and then I went to college, and then I went to grad school, and then I did a whole bunch of other things. I continued to be a geek. I continued to play all sorts of other games, but always kind of wanted to play D&D. And then the Acquisitions Incorporated podcast started coming out.
Yes.
Where Perkins was leading a bunch of people through. And he was basically, it was kind of both an instructional thing, but also like, hey, here's 4th edition coming out. Yeah. And I was moving to Seattle at the time to be closer to my now husband, but then boyfriend Luke. And I had been listening to the podcast, and I'm like, I want to play this so bad. I super duper want to play this. And so when I got to Seattle, I found a friendly local game store that had the Redbox and had, I don't remember what it's called, but it's now called Adventures League, where you can just show up at a place be put together with people. They had that running. And so I joined a group and started to play. And then the rest of the world happened, and the rest of history happened. But that's kind of the... I technically had my claws into it when I was super, super young, but not really. It wasn't until beginning of 4th edition.
Still, though, it's pretty cool, though, that they did that red box again for 4th edition. So you got to come in again.
Do you see it right there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I see it. I notice it every time.
Yeah.
Mine's out on display in the living room, because that's also what I started with for D&D. And that's just so cool.
Yeah. And one of these days, we will get B. Dave to actually play in a 4th edition game for charity. It'll be great.
It will happen, B. Dave. It will.
And you will have fun. And that's okay. You never have to play 4th edition again. It'll be fun.
That's fantastic. Yeah, the other thing you're saying, though, with the older Redbox where it had the choose your own adventure thing, I just found another game that does that for its starter kit, and it was one of the coolest ways to get into a game that I found, where it's like, we're going to play choose your own adventure. We're also going to build your character as we do it. And you're also going to get like a super creepy story out of it. I'm like, this is cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
It also had the dice with the white crayon that you had to color in all of the numbers with, which was my only complaint about the 4th edition red box, which was the dice did not require you to color in the numbers.
How dare they come with pre-printed dice? The
I know,
audacity.
Right? I wanted that white crayon that you just have to stick in there and all the numbers.
Oh, jeez. Since that time of your life, you've done a lot of D&D now.
Yes.
And one of those D&D things that you've been doing for quite a bit is Distinguished Adventurers.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell a chat about what Distinguished Adventurers is?
So, just before 5th edition came out. So, what are we talking about? 2015, 2016? It's been a while. Time is a thing.
For 5th edition, that was 2013.
Oh, yeah, no, that's right. So this would have been 2012-ish. So I'd been playing 4th edition, and I'd been going to... I was and still am, a huge fan of Rooster Teeth and the stuff that they do. And I had quite a few friends that are still very close friends that we would meet up every year at the annual convention in Austin, Texas, RTX. And a bunch of us would come a day early and do a charity drive that was usually a silent auction for usually able gamers and often a couple of other charities. And it was just a fun thing for us to do. And the first couple years that I went, I was poor. And so I didn't really have anything to specifically like make or buy and give. And no one really wants to buy oboe lessons. So I was trying to figure out what I could offer to the charity drive. And so it was, I was going to run a D&D game. I would run a one-shot for a bunch of people one of the evenings, because this was also early enough in RTX world where the convention would go on, but there wasn't necessarily a lot to do in the evening. And so you could bid to be in the game. And that slowly spun out over a couple of years of 4th edition, where then I would have set people playing in the game, but the person who won could be the boss monster. And then we started doing games that were actually in front of an audience. We would get they weren't streamed at the time, although we've now done some streamed from RTX. But the first couple were like, all right, here's a room, and you can play your game over 2 hours in front of an audience. And we would fill the room. And so the people that ended up being the regulars in the game are 4 of my really, really good friends, who are Jack, John, Jonathan, and Jules. Yeah, it's a bunch of J's and me.
That's fantastic.
Right? So we had been playing, and one of the years just after 5th edition had come out, a whole bunch of people came to the show, and they were really excited, and they were like, are you going to put this out as like a stream or a podcast or something? And this was still... like Critical Role hadn't even come out yet. It was just like podcasts had started. And I'd been doing some podcasting with some friends, but we had a whole bunch of people at the convention saying, hey, you should like do this and put this out as a podcast because look, Acquisitions Incorporated. So I went, okay, yeah, sure. And the 5 of us got together. The characters that they had originally made, they kind of altered and did whatever they needed to do to make them longer term characters. And I remember at the time saying, well, I don't have a ton of time. So, I'll probably do like a mashup of a little bit of homebrew and then something from one of the adventures that just came out. And now we've been going on for 300 episodes.
300 episodes?
Yeah, we just hit 300, and we've been going on for multiple years. We've now done a campaign from 1 to 20. The first campaign has officially ended, but we're doing what I'm calling a one last job kind of mini adventure, because they got to level 20 and they defeated the biggie, end monster and everything. But I always like for players to get a chance to really flex their muscles at level 20. And there was this one thing that had been basically a side quest since pretty much episode 5 or 6, that every once in a while one of the players would be like, yeah, we're going to go take care of Wendragod's Tower. We're going to go to Wendragod's Tower. They've had the deed for this tower for forever. So now that the adventure is over, the whole campaign.
That's me in Oblivion. Yeah. I'm going to go do this DLC. I swear, I got the letter for it at the beginning of the game. I'm going to do this DLC.
Yep.
It'll happen.
It'll happen. And so we got to the end of the campaign, and a part of basically the wrap-up is they're now doing this, what I'm calling a standalone adventure, because you don't have to have listened or participated in any of the campaign before that. It's its own little one last job. We've got this deed. Let's go check out this tower. We're going to have a couple of guests come on, which we've only had a couple of guests.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we've had a couple guests joining us. In fact, most of the guests that we've ever had have been Idle Champions related. Yeah, I ran, because we've been, and by way I mean Distinguished Adventurers, we've been offering Electrum chess codes for years. Like when we were one of the first pilot shows to start doing that. You know, it was us and The Last Refuge and a bunch of podcasts. So we've been offering Electrum chess for years, and so we had some of the Idle Champions people come on. Chris Dupuis has played in our game.
What? You got Dupuis on there?
I ran a one shot. Yeah, I ran a one shot for a whole bunch of C&E people. I ran a one shot that had my players, and then it was just as they were starting to work on the first Idle Champions Presents. So part of the promotion was B. Dave and Aaron and Mark and Christina at the time, although she wasn't able to make. Yeah, she wasn't able to make our show. But so B. Dave came on and played as Freely, and Mark came on and played as Baloth, and Aaron came on and played as Havilar, and they joined my players. And and that's when Aaron tells the story about, I suddenly had to make a level 17 character and I didn't know what to do, and but the DM was super, was trying to help me, and then I went to all my friends like, that was my game, because my players are level 17. So so B-Dave's like, yeah, sure, I got level 17, absolutely, I got Freely at every level.
I have seen the document, the spreadsheet of Freely levels. What's really funny is I actually showed that to a friend, and he was just like, I don't understand any of this, and I was just like, this might be why B. Dave and I are friends. I understand this.
I have a lot of respect for people who do that, but I cannot. I have a vague idea of the mechanics I want to go for or where it might go, but I am so much about, stuff can go on in a D&D game, and my character will suddenly want to multi-class or suddenly want to go in this direction. It almost happened to Orkira twice, and so I can't myself do that whole, I'm going to plan out to 20, because I will change depending on what happens in the story.
The reason I don't do it is because I almost like not knowing, because otherwise I just sit there the whole time just like, I'm not high enough level to do this yet.
I know,
I was
right?
just level 18.
You know what will break you of that? Play a character for a couple of years and where you're constantly bouncing around levels, and where every time you play them, you are playing a different level. And
That's
sometimes
fair.
You're at level 20, and sometimes you're at 17, and sometimes you're at 6, and sometimes you're at 12, and you very quickly will learn to just go with it. It's okay.
There was a one of the things I wanted to say, the one shot or the side story that you're doing right now with them at level 20.
Yeah.
It's the one last job. I really hope at some point someone says, I'm getting too high level for this stuff.
Oh, yes. Yes. Hey, if any of my players are listening, if any of you are listening, if someone says I'm getting too old for this, I will give you inspiration. I swear right now, because I'm waiting for that. None of them are too old for it, but I'm too high level for this. I want it so bad. So if you want to get into Distinguished Adventurers, they can be found on wherever fine podcasts can be found. Yes. And search for the most recent episode is episode 1. It's called Wendergod's Tower. So you can.
How long are the episodes usually?
Between 40 minutes and I think the longest ones are about an hour and a half, an hour 45.
Oh,
but
that's
they
so digestible.
They average about an hour. I really try with I love playing in longer games, but I like the more digestible bite size to watch. And podcasts for a while, if they were longer than an hour, no one wanted to listen to them.
Oh God.
So I'm kind of trained that way.
only me, who sat in a parking lot as a parking lot attendant for like 5 years, did I want podcasts that were longer. But
Right?
after that, I'm like, no, please stop.
Yeah. Yeah. So we we'll often play for 2.5 hours, and then I'll split that up into 2 episodes. On a regular basis, our episodes are like 45 minutes to an hour. It's actually really rare that we go longer than an hour 10 because, yeah, I want it to be bite-sized. I want it to be easily digestible. And yeah, we are all busy, busy people. And so getting a chance to record, especially now that 2 of my players have the babies, is hard.
Oh, the babies.
The babies have happened. So
They've come down with the babies.
we literally took a baby hiatus because so one of my players had already had a child and they were having their second. And another one of my players was having a child, and they were literally the kids were slated to be born like a month apart from each other, just by happenstance. And I'm like, you know what? We're just going to take a break. It's fine. It'll be okay. We'll just take a little hiatus. It's the first time we'll have taken one in like a decade. It's fine. So, but yeah, if you would like to jump on in, go check out Distinguished Adventurers. We used to be called Dungeon Drunks, and then before that we were called Dungeons and Dragons and Drunks, and for obvious reasons we've changed our name several times.
What's wild is like, oh man, it was just at the end of me being a parking lot attendant. I remember seeing that name, and I had it on the list of shows to like give a shot, and then I stopped being a parking lot attendant, and I just only listened to like 2 podcasts, and now I'm just like, oh man, I could have been listening to that for so long now.
It's okay. Like, and that's one of the reasons I was super happy that what we decided to do was this like weird one shot, because the other thing that happens is, like, I love that we have this long-running campaign. It was super fun to play, and it's really good to dig into those kind of campaigns. But as someone coming in new who's like, hey, I'd love to give this group a try, and then you see 300 episodes, it's like,
But
nah.
my wife and I literally had a conversation about that the other day. Like, she doesn't usually consume actual plays. They're usually not her jam. One, because they are so long and keeping up with everything and whatnot. And, but she said, like, I've realized that I like one shots because I know that there is a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yep.
And I'm just there for that amount of time, and that's it. And I get that, and I think there is a section of the community that do enjoy like digesting one shots more than long running campaigns. But obviously, there is a big group of people that do like ongoing campaigns.
I just want them in bite-sized chunks. I want long running, unless I'm playing in the game, and then I want to just play forever, and then give me D4. Which I played in forever, with nice 4-hour chunky games. I love playing in that show, and I love it because those people are awesome. But yeah, it gets to the end of a show, and I'm like, I don't want to stop. No, I want to keep playing. But I, as a listener, I also really appreciate the bite-sized nature of podcasts or of smaller shows. So
yeah. But you do another show right now, Children of Éarte. Tell Chad about that. Because that is one of them that when I heard about, I instantly wanted to watch it.
Well, and the good thing about Children of Éarte is we are only 2 hours every week, and we have just begun, so we're at episode 10. So we've not gotten too far. So Children of Éarte is from the wonderful mind of Deborah Ann Wall, who's our DM. And it's on the Demiplane channel. It's what a bunch of us have been doing since Heroes of the Plains have retired. And by retired, I mean the show is retired, and a bunch of us went to go help out in the Shadowfell. So the conceit of Children of Éarte is a bunch of people, normal people, get a train ticket to take an old-timey steam engine style train on a week-long excursion up north, so there's snow, and doing a sightseeing type tour and enjoying the atmosphere of the train, enjoying all of this stuff. And for various reasons, our characters have decided to join along. And then things happen, and then there's magic. And so these characters, the way Deborah describes it is, what if all the fairy tales were real, and what if you then ended up in the fairy world? Like, what if you were the outsider learning how to practice magic and do fun things and everything? So when we started, we had done a lot of work together about tying in backstory elements and all sorts of stuff, but also on, and this is one of the things that I love about it. We haven't told anybody what our races and classes and subclasses are.
And I love that.
Although at this point, some of them are fairly obvious. But so at the time we started at level 1, obviously the characters didn't know, but we kind of knew. And one of the things that has been the most fun has been the discovery element of our characters figuring out spells and abilities and things that, as a D&D player, especially someone who's played for years and years and years, at low level, you almost take for granted. You almost... Yeah. You hear a lot of people who are like, I don't even want to start at level 1 anymore. Start at 3 or 5 because it's just, there's not enough. But suddenly being in the position in where you're trying to have your character discover this ability that they have. Mm-hmm. And they don't even know what it's called. Like, we've renamed everything for, like some of the spells that my character has learned how to cast are now named differently because she doesn't know what it's really called. In the book, she just knows what she calls it, and she doesn't even know if it's a spell or not. She just knows she can do this thing. So having those discovery moments, having stuff happen in the game that then it's like, ooh, I see how this could prompt me to then do a thing and have my character discover how to do this or do something for another character. We're at level 2 now, and there's literally things that my character has never done. Whole big chunks of my character sheet I've never touched because nothing has come up in the game that would inspire her to find it.
I love that.
It's super fun, and I love playing with the group that I've got, and the story is getting awesome, and my poor character Neb has been through the ringer. Oh, she has almost died multiple times.
The last time you and I talked about Children of Éarte, that's what you were telling me about. Neb's had a rough time.
And she won't call it a rough time because she's all excited. She's got the mentality of this is new and exciting and I want to find out everything and I want to learn everything. And so she ends up not at the front lines, but like she's not, I'm going to run off into danger, but she'll be the first through the door when we decide to go through the door. And she shouldn't be. She just shouldn't be. So, so she's gotten roughed up quite a few times, and yeah, it's there was once in where I was sitting there going, we're only 5 episodes in, and I'm gonna have to come up with a new character. Oh, all right, we're here now. Let's do this. So, but it's super fun, and it's been also an evolution for her. Like, we've now referenced the fact that like she's got these calloused over burnt hands and she's all scarred. She's like 25. Mm-hmm. She's a baker, and now she's just like grizzled veteran of the last 2 or 3 days just because of all the stuff that she's been through. But it's awesome.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like a show where it needs a group where everyone reads the assignment and understands the assignment, and from what I've heard, that is the group that y'all got. I'm actually planning very soon to like do a kind of a binge marathon of Children of Éarte because it just sounds so dang cool.
I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, like what's been the ongoing assignment literally has been just week by week by week having those moments where we go, okay, is there something that you want to be able to do? How can we help you do the thing? How can, or just knowing in advance, oh, this player wants this character to discover this spell or this ability. Knowing that so that we can help craft a moment that they can do that has been this interesting experience, and it means that it makes level 1 and level 2 super interesting. I'm not joking when I say there's whole sections of my character sheet I haven't even looked at yet. I know what's there, obviously, but I haven't touched because we haven't gotten there yet. So I'm super excited.
That's
and yeah,
awesome.
Chat has started to figure out, I think they figured out all of our classes,
Okay.
Especially in the last couple of episodes, it's become a lot easier to figure that out if you weren't sure. But there's still a lot of questions about a lot of things, and there's some assumptions out there. It's a joy to like watch the episode back and see chat and see them making guesses that totally make sense for what they know, and be like, oh, I can't wait for you to figure this part out.
See, I really love that aspect of it, because like, I know me, I would be tempted to just start messing with chat, where it's like, all right, we're level 4, and then I'm like, I'm gonna take Magic Initiate and get Eldritch Blast. Just really throw people off, make them think I'm multi-classed or something.
None of us have done that intentionally, but a lot of us, and me specifically, made choices on our character sheet that are 100% related to the character and the motivations of the character and the backstory of the character, that when they come up, people get confused by, because they're not the normal things. They think, oh, Neb must be this class. And then I do something and they're like, well, wait a second, why would this class have this ability or this modifier or, that kind of thing? And it's fun because then there's always a reason, but a lot of the time, because we've come from being real people in the real world who, we didn't build our stats to be these magical creatures. We built them to be real people in the real world. And now you're seeing some of that interplay. So it's been super fun.
Fantastic. Well, yes, be sure to check out both Distinguished Adventures and Children of Éarte at any of the places that is easily convenient for you. But I think we're going to switch over now to our game. But before we do that, we got a giveaway that we're going to do.
Ooh,
So our giveaway is going to be in chat, and you type in bag of holding, all one word, lowercase, wait for Martin to say when the giveaway starts. But after they put that in chat, go ahead and just fill it all with bag of holdings to be entered for a chance to win a bunch of chests of your choice. But while that happens, there we go. Martin just dropped in there now. Yeah, nice. While that happens, Lauren is going to give us the lowdown on this game.
So actually, before I do, I'm going to answer one question that I just saw in chat real quick. From Galabond was asking, when you edit your sessions into episodes, do you include any of the out-of-character table talk, or do you edit that out? As a longtime DM and player, I can see the appeal of both ways, but curious what your audience prefers. Oh. That is an excellent question. There's no one answer, because sometimes I edit it out and sometimes I don't. And the reason for me, first off, I always talk with the players, and because we record but don't live stream, we have the luxury of, if we want to have an out-of-character moment, if we need to work something out, someone's got to stop and take care of a baby, if, whatever happens, it can be easily edited.
Yes.
And it's not that we, then go back and, redo stuff, but it gives us that opportunity. And so when we have those out-of-character table talk moments, invariably I ask, are we okay with leaving this in or not? And sometimes the answer is no, and sometimes it's yes. And it really depends on the situation and the game and what's been going on. I tend to leave them in as long as everybody's okay with it, because our game, Distinguished Adventures, has always been, you're sitting at the table with us, and it's not that we're not into playing D&D, but we are very leaned into the more casual, we are friends who are playing D&D. Our icebreaker at the beginning is always, we talk about what we're drinking for that episode.
I love that.
So that's the introduction, is everybody talks about, sometimes it's what they're drinking, often it's what they're eating as well. And it's our way of transitioning from all the chat from being friends before the show starts into the game. But I leave a lot of that in, because that is the style of our game, in where hearing some of that out-of-character talk, whether it's we just go off on tangents and have a funny chat for a minute or two, or actual discussions about mechanics, especially at the higher levels. There's been a bunch of them recently, simply because we've gotten to the point where characters have spells or abilities, and my players are super experienced players now. 2 of them have been DMs for a very long time, and we sometimes have a difference of opinion about how something will work. And so we'll talk about, well, what do you think? And what do you think in this way? and including things like Wish and Divine Intervention and some of those really big powerhouses, talking about that and doing those kind of modifications right there at the table. And then, I almost always ask, if I'm ever unsure, are you okay with me leaving this in? And if the answer is yes, then you got to hear it. So
fantastic.
And
love that.
This game that we're about to play is actually born out of one of those conversations.
Hey, there we go. Also, congratulations to J. McUnyielding for winning the giveaway. Okay, so bag of holding game. What's going on?
Okay, so here's the bag of holding. The bag of holding is this really interesting magic item that everybody in D&D kind of knows a lot about, and
it's very iconic.
It's an incredibly iconic piece of magical item, and I'll read over the actual item description because it's actually very important to the game. So the idea of the game is that I'm going to ask a whole bunch of questions that are not answerable just by looking at the information in the bag of holding. In the 5th edition bag of holding. And the goal of the game, by the end of it, is to have come up with the most ridiculous scenario that can have happened in a D&D game that is totally legal because of what is or isn't in the text of the bag of holding. And the only other rule is basically that unless it directly conflicts with something written in the bag of holding description, there are no wrong answers. Mm-hmm. Almost all the questions I'm going to ask, there are 0 wrong answers. It is 100% a matter of opinion, a matter of what you think. Well, my DM would say this. All of them are 100% valid answers. But I have questions that, well, we'll just go into it. So here you go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let me read off bag of holding for those of you who don't know. This bag has an interior space considerably larger than the outside dimensions, roughly 2 feet in diameter at the mouth and 4 feet deep. The bag can hold up to 500 pounds, not exceeding a volume of 64 cubic feet. The bag weighs 15 pounds, regardless of its contents. Retrieving an item from the bag requires an action. If the bag is overloaded, pierced, or torn, it ruptures and is destroyed, and its contents are scattered in the astral plane. If the bag is turned inside out, its contents spill forth. And we'll go to there we go. Unharmed, but the bag must be put right before it can be used again. Breathing creatures inside the bag can survive up to a number of minutes equal to 10 divided by the number of creatures, minimum of 1 minute, after which time they begin to suffocate. Placing a bag of holding inside an extra-dimensional space created by a handy haversack or a portable hole or similar item instantly destroys both items and opens a gate to the astral plane. The gate originates where one item was placed inside another. Any creature within 10 feet of the gate is sucked through into a random location in the astral plane. The gate then closes. The gate is a one-way only and can't be reopened. There you go. Sounds like a very complex item, right? All right, here we go. I have questions. So my first question, and I'm going to ask these questions to Trevor. And once again, whatever Trevor answers, they're correct, but I am...
Feel free to put your answers in chat as well.
Feel free to put your answers in chat or if you have further questions. So I'm going to start with 2 of my favorite questions to ask about the bag of holding, and you can go down either path.
Okay.
So my first question is, do items inside of a bag of holding interact with each other? And my other question, if you want to go down a different path, bag of holding says that breathing creatures inside the bag have 10 minutes worth of air. Can you refill the air inside of a bag of holding, or is there 10 minutes of air in a bag of holding forever, and once you use it up, it's gone?
Oh, boy.
And I love that the chat is now just going to be filled with yes, yes, no.
Yeah,
and I would like to remind everybody, there are 0 wrong answers to either of those questions because
it's true.
The answers are not in the text of the bag.
Oh, man. I don't know why, but this isn't just to be a contrarian to chat. I actually want to say no to the first one.
That they don't interact?
They do not interact within the bag.
Listen, like I said, there's no wrong answers. Okay, so you put something in a bag of holding, and you put an item or whatever in a bag of holding, and it cannot interact with other items.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that because then my brain just gets too messed up in what could happen with that, and it's so unimportant to the story that it's just
Listen, you every path leads to glory in this. Okay, so you say that they do not interact. So if you put a person in a bag of holding, they cannot then interact with any of the objects in a bag of holding. If you put a person in and there's a sword already in the bag of holding, they cannot go sword and take the sword.
Okay, so here's how my brain has always kind of imagined a bag of holding, where it's essentially an extra dimensional blank space that is dark that these items just kind of exist in. Like, they wouldn't bounce into each other, but I think I would allow it that if somehow a living creature was in there and they saw items, they could move themselves and get to that and use it.
Okay, but if you, and I'll just go ahead and address it immediately because we've already had people in chat talking about it. If you put water in the bag, if you fill a bag of holding with water, if I have a gallon jug and I dump a gallon jug, it doesn't make any of the other items wet.
Yes, because I also think that that's just funny.
Okay, all right. But if it makes other items wet, so does that mean that other items can interact with each other?
No, if it makes it wet, then they would interact with each other. But I'm saying because my answer was no, they do not make the other items wet. Because again, that's just funny. The idea of someone pouring a gallon of water in there and then pulling out like a fresh book.
Yeah. So you're saying that it takes a sentient creature in order to interact with the other items in the bag, and that's what lets you interact, but that non-sentient items do not. You don't have, your...
See, I like the wording of that.
You don't have a box and a ball, and they don't bang up against each other.
I love the wording of that, non-sentient items, because then you can have fun with sentient items that are in there messing with stuff.
Well, hey, listen,
it's all about luring the players into a false sense of security.
That also leads us down the whole path of if you animate an object and put it on in there, what happens to it? Is it now?
I like that someone put in the singing sword because I do like the idea where you just open up the top of it. Oh, you do the Ace Ventura.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing. Okay. So it takes a sentient person to be able to interact with the objects.
Yes.
So that means if you fill, because one of the other questions that usually comes up with a bag to get around the whole 10 minutes of air thing is we're going to fill the bag full of water. We're going to put someone in there who can breathe water, and that will let them survive longer. So in your instance, even though stuff can't interact, because there's a sentient one, because there's a sentient creature breathing the water, now the sentient creature can interact with the water.
Yep.
If a sentient creature interacting in the water then summons the sword that's in the bag of holding, is the sword now interactable with the water?
Yeah. Because like in my head, they are kind of just floating there. They can interact. They just normally don't. I think that's the better way for me to say in my head how it works.
Okay. Once again, I'm writing in chat. There's no wrong answers here.
Yeah.
All right. So let's pivot a little bit.
I'm used to being told I'm wrong.
No, you're 100% right. There's zero in any of this. None of this is in. I mean, one of the other questions is how do you get something out of a bag of holding? Because the only line in this whole magic item is retrieving an item from the bag requires an action.
Yep.
So how do you just reach in and it magically is in your hand? Do you have to think about it? Do you have to say it? Do you have to know what's in the bag in order to pull it out?
Yeah, see that's kind of the messy part, isn't it? Like it's like if it was a player who has the bag of holding, in my head, like if I were to sit there and write out a descriptive paragraph of a character using a bag of holding and doing that, it would be that their hand goes in, they know what item they want, and then their hand finds it and pulls it out.
Okay.
I think that would be in my head how that would work. But then you come into the thing of like, okay, you find, because that then begs the question, okay, when you just find a bag of holding, there might be stuff in there and you just don't know because it always weighs 15 pounds.
Yep.
But then then you get into the like, okay, but you can only fill it with 60 cubic feet of stuff. So if it's suddenly full and you're like, you know, I may just be a wandering adventure on the road, but I know 64 cubic feet when I see it.
Right?
There is not enough stuff in here. So then how do you go about finding that stuff? That's when you just get, you know what? No.
Because it does talk about that in the bag. It does say you can
No,
basically turn
I
the
know.
bag inside out, but
I know what you do. You stick your head in it.
Okay.
You stick your head in the bag and you can take a look around, see what it is, and like, oh, okay. And then you take your head back out and you're like, give me that sword.
All right.
So yes, you do have to know what it is, but there is an easy way to find out.
Okay. I love that you just stick your head in the bag. And that you can see everything, that it's just visible like it's on racks or something.
Yeah. It's just kind of like floating there like a video game menu or something.
Also, Tomato says requires dark vision, which is...
I would actually say no, because I love unsettling liminal spaces, and so it would be a black background, but everything is perfectly lit.
I mean, and that's a whole other question right there. Is it dark in the bag? Is it light in the bag? If you put a light in the bag, does it become a lighted area? You don't know. Let's pivot. So you put your head in the bag. You've got 10 minutes worth of air.
Bag vision. Sorry. Evil Turnip just said bag vision, and that killed me. Oh my god. You walk into a JCPenney. Sorry, I have bag vision.
I've been in a bag for too long. All right. You have 10 minutes worth of air in this bag, either because you've put your head in there or you've put yourself in there. Can you refill that air?
So yeah, I do think that, because you brought this up to me before the show, and I was just like, oh crap, I never thought about that. I do think that, yeah, when you open it, it refills the air.
Okay. Does that mean if you stick someone in the bag and then you just make sure to open the bag every once in a while, they actually have, as long as you continue to keep the bag open or continue to reopen it, because a bag of holding, the picture of it has a flap on it. So let's say that it is flapped closed unless you actually open it, and that if you're not actively keeping it open, it flaps back closed again. So, which is not listed anywhere in the description.
I want to point out, some people in the chat are saying bag sucks you in and it closes. Nowhere in this description does it say that. That's only for if you put the portable hole in it.
Well, and that gets into, and once again, you're not... If
you're not wrong. I'm just saying that, like, this is what I'm going with, but there is no thing on that thing that says that you get sucked into the bag.
The reason people get confused, because it's a very, it's an understandable thing. Both the handy haversack and the portable hole have stuff in their description describing escaping them. The bag of holding does not. The bag of holding does not say, if you put an unwilling creature in there, it does not give a description on a mechanic that they can escape from. The handy haversack actually has, let me pull it out. It might actually be the portable hole, but one of them has the actual, if a hole is, yes, here we go. If a hole is folded up, a creature with the hole's extra dimensional space can use an action to make a DC 10 strength check. On a successful check, the creature forces its way out and appears somewhere. So it says that in the hole, but it doesn't say that for the bag.
Yep.
Which means whatever you want it to mean.
Yep. Well, so here's the thing. You're talking about putting somebody going into the bag and it opening up. So fun story. My 4th edition group.
Here we go.
I don't remember the exact circumstances that this came about, but they ended up with a very feral kobold. And they were like, oh, this is what it was. They were like, okay, but like the kobold we might need the kobold for something further in the dungeon. And they're like, we can't just walk around this dude. He's just screaming his dang head off. Like, we're going to get found pretty easily. And so my player Mickey is just like, I take the kobold and put him in the back. And I'm like, I don't think he can breathe in there, because I didn't have the stat block in front of me. And Mickey goes, I'm going to poke holes in the bag. So he poked holes in the top of the bag, which didn't affect like the bag part itself. And he was like, it's constantly getting air now. And you know what? Sure, why not? So they had a kobold in a bag of holding for years. And, like, it became an attack that Mickey would use where he's just like, open up the bag and throw Herlock at him.
Eventually, does the Cobalt just give in to its fate? And it's just I am a bad Cobalt now.
Oh, no, the Cobalt eventually was just like a Pokemon, whereas occasionally it came out and was upset. Because it was like, I was sleeping. Like, I was curled up in there and sleeping. You can't just open this bag and throw me out whenever you want.
Well, and that brings up a different line of questioning with this 10 minutes. Because, once again, no wrong answers. The 10-minute time limit indicates time passes in the bag, right? Because 10 minutes have to pass in order to, maybe you stuck in the bag have no accurate way of assessing time. Yeah. Time continues to flow for you because otherwise if time stopped for you, you would never suffocate.
Causality continues because if there's a certain amount of air and you're using the air, that causes there to soon be no air. But
exactly, which indicates it's not for sure that time passes in the bag. Someone asked in chat earlier about if you put ice cream in the bag, does it melt? That would indicate that ice cream in the bag would melt because time is passing. Also, we're assuming that the temperature in the bag is something that is at least hospitable to most sentient creatures. Oh my god! Or else you would.
Lord, this game is so good. I love this.
We don't have enough time for this. So if you put ice cream in the bag, and then you, like 3 days later, go to get the ice cream out of the bag, do you actually just get a handful of melted ice cream? Yes, that's my opinion. Because time has passed in the bag. And the bag is not, the bag doesn't necessarily have a freezing element to it in order to keep it frozen. If you put a person in the bag and put ice cream in the bag, they could summon the ice cream and eat the ice cream.
So here's the answer that I'm going to give, and it's convoluted as always.
That's the perfect thing. That's what this whole game is about.
I'm going to say, if I had a player who had an ice cream cone, nice ice cream on it, and they put it in that bag, no, it would not melt. And it's because, again, I love the idea of my players standing and having a conversation, like being in like the throne room of a king and having like hour-long conversation, and this character just taking an ice cream cone out and starting to eat it. And, but the internal logic that I would have that I would never explain is the bag is sentient enough. It doesn't want melted ice cream inside of it. That's just weird.
I mean, you don't even need to go. Once again, a lot of these are just, well, the DM says so. Why? Because it's funny. Because it's interesting. Why do I think that maybe inanimate objects do not conform to the passage of time the same way sentient breathing creatures do? So maybe time passes, but it doesn't respond. I don't know. There's no answers. It's just whatever the hell you think.
Magic Wand in the chat said it's called the bag of holding. It has to hold the temperature. You know what? That's the excuse I would use right there.
There you go.
Right there. I love that. The bag of holdings is looking right. Hot mule stay hot? Sure, whatever.
Yep. And I agree with Chris Hopper, who says refrigerated bags sound very Eberron. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I could totally see this is my refrigerated bag of holding. The temperature in here is 0 degrees Celsius, which means if you put which then gets into the whole, you put a creature in there and they could freeze to death, but also keeps your ice cream cold.
I'm going to make a gnome bard from Eberron that has a bag of colding with him. And every time he makes a grand entrance, he just flips the flap open and mist just pours out from it. And he just walks in with his guitar. Yeah, he's just like, sup?
The dry ice bag of holding. I love it. I love it. But now,
I love this so much.
We've only got a couple more minutes, and there's still like 36 questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to know, is there anything else you want to go down, or any of these paths you want to go down? Because I could ask you like 10 other questions.
I'm checking to see of the questions that we got before, if there's any that I want to get to real quick, or if we should continue with the bag of holding thing.
Because the interest, so I'll say as you look through that, the interesting thing about the question of can you refill the air in a bag of holding, if you say yes, then coming up with the mechanics of that is ridiculous and fun, and I love it. If you say no, that indicates that air is a finite resource that can never be put back into the bag in any way, shape, or form. Or you do have people who say, well, it's a finite resource. You can put it back in the bag. You just have to do it in a way that's not reopening the bag. You have to like get a balloon and put the balloon in there and then have someone in there and pop the balloon. You have like the things that people come up with for how to refill air in a bag of holding if it doesn't refill itself is brilliant.
So this is the one I'm going to read from earlier. Lurking Writer said, Corey, if you put stuff in the bag of holding and it won't let you take it out anymore, is it called a bag of withholding? Really well done.
Or it's the bag of devouring. It's one of those.
I also like this one. This is from I don't know how to say your name, and I'm sorry. Pork sauce? I'm gonna go with pork sauce. Could you chuck a smoke bomb into it, then open it up and cast smoke screen from the bag? And you know what? I let my players do that because I let them do wacky, wild stuff. Right? Because my games are essentially a Saturday morning cartoon.
And that's how I'm going to end this, since we do have to stop, is the reason I call it a game and the reason I say the goal is to come up with like the most ridiculous scenario is not for you and your players or your DM to like quantify a bag and come up with rules for it. Yeah. But literally to come up with these questions lead you down ridiculous paths that are often either fun things to then try to do in a game, fun things to try to put into an adventure. I've literally used some of the answers to these questions as plot hooks for adventures and one-shots that I've ran. And that's the beauty of items like this. And one of the reasons that I like this item so much, beyond the practical uses of it, the questions it poses and the fact that there's no right answer or no wrong answer are just meat to me. It's so good. And I love that the chat's just been, I haven't even been able to keep up with the chat.
Yep.
Yeah. How many plans would you need to counteract the 10 minutes of air you can breathe, says Senoit. And right? If you put a tree in there.
Probably more than 64 cubic feet.
Get a bunch of air plants, those plants that don't need like soil or anything. You just throw a bunch of them in there. And then maybe a mouse can stay alive. You don't know.
Yeah, you know.
But only if the stuff in the bag can interact.
It's true. Okay, well, like you said, we got to start wrapping up because we got Dev Insights right after this. Lord, thank you so much for joining me today and bringing this amazingly fun game. If people want to find you and the things you do on the interwebs, where could they do so?
Best place to find me is on Twitter at OboLauren. That's where you can keep up with most of my stuff. If you are a regular Idle Champions person and come to the streams, you've probably seen me on a bunch of streams. If you are interested in getting some of my not Idle Champions stuff, Tuesdays on the Demiplane RPG channel on Twitch is when Children of Éarte airs, and that's at 6 p.m. on Tuesdays. And Distinguished Adventures can be found wherever podcasts can be found.
Heck yeah. Also, I'm going to say this one last thing because I saw it pop up in chat about bag of holding and portable holes. My party that fought Tiamat, their plan B was if they were going to fail, they were going to throw a portable hole into the bag of holding and suck Tiamat into the astral plane. Yep. Which I always thought was really cool, and I was excited to see if that would happen, but they beat her. But yeah, that is going to do it. Dang it. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Idle Insights. Thank you so much for joining us. So until next week, take care of yourself.